Hi, I'm Peter Marone.
And I'm Seth, and I didn't think it was necessary to wear a suit for this video.
We're at Eastern High School where we conducted our AP Statistics experiment.
The goal of our experiment is to test whether different musical genres affect students' times on a basic worksheet.
Some students have claimed that working with music playing helps them concentrate and focus,
while others believe that silence provides a better working environment.
We conducted our experiment to see if one of these was true, and if so, which type of music showed the greatest improvement. The three genres we tested were classical, more specifically a piece by Mozart, heavy metal, we used a song by the band Converge, and smooth jazz by playing the song Love Calls. We used the website YouTube to administer our treatments.
To perform our experiment, we chose a sample of homerooms. Using Eastern's provided list, we randomly chose 4 cluster samples of homerooms. Each homeroom would be assigned to a musical condition in addition to silence. All subjects would complete a basic worksheet and record their times at the bottom. This is the actual worksheet that we administered to the students. We did not require them to write their names down, but we did tell them to try their best and not to cheat. Some problems from the worksheet that we asked, for example, include questions like, what is the 18th letter of the alphabet? Basic math questions, or even questions such as how many months end in the letter Y. Once students completed all 21 questions, they were to record their times down at the bottom of their paper using an online stopwatch that we displayed using smartboards. Smooth jazz may be extremely soothing and relaxing to listen to. We hypothesized that students exposed to smooth jazz would yield better times than those of the heavy metal sample or the control group who listened to nothing. However, we didn't hypothesize that students of the smooth jazz sample would perform better than the classical sample due to its sometimes sleep-inducing rhythms.
Classical music has been shown to improve thinking and concentration in past studies. For this reason, we played Piano Concerto No. 21 Andante by Mozart. We hypothesized that its peaceful and soothing nature would significantly improve completion times.
We hypothesized that students exposed to heavy metal music would be distracted and even agitated by this genre, thus hurting their completion times overall. Let's hit the stats. I'm Seth, professional dart thrower. I hit the bullseye every time.
Seth, I got the results! Oh! This is the table of all of our observations. The no music group had a sample size of 18, while the other 3 music genres all had 14 observations. These are the statistics that we made based off our data. No music had a mean of 296.44 seconds to complete the test, with a standard deviation of 69.1, while smooth jazz had a mean of 292.9 seconds to complete the test, with a standard deviation of 47.3. Smooth jazz was less than no music, which went along with our hypothesis, although it was not statistically significant.
The mean completion time for the classical group had approximately 299 seconds, with around 73 standard deviation. For heavy metal, we received a 271.9 second mean completion time approximately, with standard deviation of 42. We hypothesized that the classical mean would be lower and better than our control, and that heavy metal would be greater and thus worse. However, the outcome here is reversed. The no music histogram shows a spread from about 110 to 390. It's centered around 307.5 approximately. It has a minor left skew. When we observe the smooth jazz histogram, it spreads from 204 to 360 and is centered around approximately 285.5. It's bimodal in shape. When we observe the classical histogram, it spreads from about 125 to 400 and is approximately centered around 312.5. It also shows approximate symmetry when you observe it. For the heavy metal histogram, it spreads from 180 to 320 and is centered around approximately 282.5 and exhibits a minor left skew.
The no music box plot shows a minimum of 110 and a maximum of 390. 50% of the data lies between 240 and 343, and you can see the minor left skew. The smooth jazz box plot has a minimum of 204 and a maximum of 360. 50% of the data lies between 257 and 325, and you can see the approximately symmetrical distribution. The classical box plot has a minimum of 125 and a maximum of 400. 50% of the data lies between 268 and 341. It is approximately symmetrical because the slight left skew is only between Q1 and Q3. The heavy metal box plot has a minimum of 180 and a maximum of 320. 50% of the data lies between 263 and 300. Most of the data is approximately symmetrical, but the two low outliers give it a slight left skew overall.
We conducted multiple two-sample t-tests to investigate our data. While reviewing the combined no music and smooth jazz tests, our alternative hypothesis was that the mean completion time for no music would be greater than that of smooth jazz. However, there was a p-value of 0.43 to show that there were no significant effects. While we reviewed the combined no music and classical test, the alternative hypothesis was that the mean completion time of no music would be greater than the mean completion time for classical. There was a p-value of 0.54, so there were also no significant effects.
For a combined test between no music and heavy metal, we had an alternative hypothesis that the no music mean time would be lower than heavy metal, as we believed heavy metal would be agitating and distracting. A p-value of 0.89 meant that we did not have sufficient evidence to reject our null hypothesis. For our combined test between smooth jazz and classical, we believe that smooth jazz would have a greater mean time than classical, as we believe classical was more beneficial in soothing, resulting in lower times. However, a p-value of 0.61 meant that we had insignificant evidence to reject our null hypothesis. For a combined test between smooth jazz and heavy metal, we had an alternative hypothesis that smooth jazz mean times would be less than heavy metal mean times. However, a p-value of 0.89 meant that we did not have sufficient evidence to reject our null hypothesis of the two being equal. For our test between classical and heavy metal, we had an alternate hypothesis that the classical mean times would be much lower than the heavy metal times, as we viewed classical as beneficial and heavy metal detrimental. However, a p-value of 0.88 meant that we did not have sufficient evidence to reject our null.
In conclusion, none of the two-sample t-tests we ran with our data resulted in statistically significant results.
This means that we cannot make any conclusions about our musical treatments or their effects.
That's all.
Thanks for watching.